Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 14th of June, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, you might not believe it, but I have had a fair few people asking me lately if I am still bullish on ETH. Yes, really, I don't believe it myself, considering, obviously how much time I spend in this ecosystem. The fact that people are still asking me this is weird. But anyway, I put out a tweet here where I said, here's how bullish I am. I have held ETH, all the ETH that I've ever bought with fiat, from $10 to $14.20 to $80 to $4,400 to $2,400, and now I think the price is $2,500 or something like that. And I've never sold a single Gwei, and I buy more every single day. This is the truth. I have really never sold any ETH that I bought with fiat. Now, of course, there has been ETH that I've gotten from various means, like through the Daily Gwei on Gitcoin. I've gotten ETH there, and I've gotten ETH via other means, like people paying me to do things and stuff like that, that I have to cash out for tax purposes because it's considered income. But and when I take profits from yield farming, I'll sometimes go to ETH, and then I'll have to cash out some of that ETH because of taxes. Anytime that I've sold ETH really has just been for tax obligations. But all the ETH that I have bought with fresh fiat that was in my bank account, or buying ETH, I guess, from yield farming profits or anything like that after tax, I have never sold any of this. From the first time I bought ETH at $10 in 2017 to the last time I bought ETH, or at least the latest time, which is today, because I do buy ETH every single day. It's not like a lot of ETH every day, right? It's a little bit every day, but I try to buy whenever I can. And that usually is like an everyday cadence now, whether that's like yield farming profits, especially when gas is this low, I take yield farming profits quicker than I normally would, because of the fact that the gas is low, so I don't have to wait a few days for it to kind of catch up. So the gas cost doesn't eat into my profits. So I use that, and I have income from other sources and things like that. And I obviously some of my income that I get from other sources, I'll put into ETH and things like that. So yeah, and that's how bullish I am. And I've said before, I never plan to sell my ETH. I've been moving most of my ETH. I think pretty much most of it is in staking right now, because I just wanted to sit there. I just want to stack more ETH like that. And then once the merge goes through, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have most of my ETH, almost all of my ETH in staking at that point. And I'm going to keep adding to it, keep spinning up more validators as I can as time goes on. And I just really don't have any reason to ever sell my ETH. I just want to keep increasing my stack. To me, it's I'm so bullish on Ethereum and ETH as an ecosystem. So why should I sell any? Even I've gone through my longer term price targets on the refuel before, but really I don't have a price target in mind where I'm I'm going to sell here, because I'm not going to sell. So for me, it's just easy for me to hold through all of this, because if you mentally kind of say to yourself, okay, well, it doesn't have to be a whole stack, but if you have a small stack that becomes your permanent staking stack, say it's 30% of your ETH or whatever, and you say, well, this is a stack that I'm never selling, I'm always going to stake it. Well, then that 30%, it shouldn't matter what the price is at the end of the day. You should just be, happy that you have it and you're staking with it and working to make sure that you preserve that amount. You don't lose it, through some kind of exploit or hack or whatever, even if you're yield farming with it. So from that perspective, that's kind of I guess the play I make. And this isn't for everyone, of course. I mean, this isn't to say that I haven't sold other things and taken profits into fiat. I definitely have, other tokens that I've bought and things like that. I buy these tokens by leveraging my ETH, so putting my ETH into a money market, drawing stablecoins against it, and buying tokens. Now that is obviously risky. I'm risking my ETH in doing so. But as I mentioned before, I keep a rather low liquidation price here when I do that, and I don't do that very often. I definitely do that when the market's hotter, for sure, or when I feel like the market is going to get much hotter and getting in kind of earlier. I think the last time I did that was December, January for a few DeFi tokens, and then I kind of sold some of them off as I saw the market was getting pretty overheated. But I don't kind of look at that when I look at ETH, and I'm definitely not a trader or anything like that. And some of them I did go into ETH, like I've spoken about before. Actually, this was in, I think it was October or something like that, where I sold the dots that I had bought in the ICO in late 2017. I sold that for more ETH. I basically took what I needed for taxes and then reinvested the rest of it in ETH. So I do a lot of that, of course, and I think that's just the way to play it at the end of the day. If you've got a really long-term outlook, then you should definitely be doing that, I believe. It's not to say that's investment advice or whatever, but that's just what I kind of think is the good approach. And, obviously, if it's money that you're happy with kind of it going down and being volatile, then, you got to consider that as well. Anyway, enough on that. I just wanted to address it because I kind of thought it was a bit funny that people were kind of asking me if I was still bullish on ETH. Like that's, you know what I mean. Like that's a funny question to ask. But anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. I want to move on to this interesting tweet, which was basically a meme from Fiskantes here, and this is the topic of today's Daily Gwei newsletter as well. So you can go check this out. But he basically did like a virgin vALuelLEss governance token person versus the Chad GTC or Gitcoin token holder here, and he basically, I'm not going to read out the whole meme. You can see it'll be linked in the YouTube description if you want to go check it out. But he basically says that these kind of like vALuelLEss, the Virgin vALuelLEss governance token is basically holding things that holding a project doesn't have a vision. Probably most of the projects are fork. It's basically a Ponzi. It's basically like a shitcoin, for lack of a better word. Whereas holding the Gitcoin token, the GTC token, is holding something that actually means something, because the token is used to coordinate different problems within the Gitcoin ecosystem, used for governance there. It got airdropped to people that are very aligned with the Gitcoin ecosystem. It got listed on Binance and Coinbase, doesn't even care. And Vitalik can't stop simping the Gitcoin holders, because Vitalik obviously loves Gitcoin, and all these kind of benefits here. Now, I guess like full disclaimer here, I hold GTC, obviously. I hold a sizable amount of it. You can see it at sassel.eth if you want. I'm very, very transparent about that. But generally, I think what I spoke about in the newsletter today was basically around this, I guess, concept of just tokens in general, and like why I think people have the wrong idea of tokens. Because a lot of people think tokens are, shitty or evil or useless or just like completely pointless. And I think that definitely misses the forest for the trees. I think, of course, there are a lot of tokens out there that don't deserve to exist, that don't need to exist, that are complete rubbish. A lot of them are scams, right? But in kind of those scams, there is definitely diamonds, and I think that the Gitcoin token is definitely one. I think that there is a bunch of other tokens out there that I think have long-term value and can accrue long-term value. I'm not going to list them all because I don't want to be seen to be giving kind of like advice of what's the token to buy or anything like that, and definitely don't take my my positivity towards GTC as a signal to buy it. But I guess my point is that it just depends on how these tokens are designed and distributed. Those are the two main points that I look at. So when you first look at a governance token, for example, that gets issued by a DeFi protocol because they want to decentralize, the first thing I always look at is kind of like what the distribution looks like. Is it heavily weighted towards team and investors, or is it heavily weighted towards community? If it's heavily weighted towards community, how are these tokens coming to market? Is it through an aggressive liquidity mining campaign, or are the tokens basically in a treasury that will be distributed to people who do work for the protocol over time? I've spoken about the Index Coop a lot before, and how the tokens are distributed via a very modest liquidity mining program. And they're also distributed via, I guess, like the treasury to people that are contributing value to the Index Coop. That's the same play, I think, what's going to happen with Gitcoin, where they're going to just distribute GTC tokens to various kind of things here, whether that be, directly in the platform or just kind of paying out to people that are, I guess, helping out the project and things like that. And then the kind of like the second part on the distribution is, if I see a project that has a really aggressive liquidity mining campaign, I won't even go near that token, because I really think that it just turns into this perpetual kind of like commoditized farm and dump thing, where you have these people coming in, just farming like locusts and constantly dumping the coin. And then the passive holders of the coin are actually hurt, because what ends up happening is that the market cap will just keep dropping over time, and the price of the coin will obviously keep dropping over time. But if you're a farmer and you're kind of like not hurting from this drop because you're farming and dumping, you are the one profiting from it, right? But if you're a passive holder of this token, you're essentially being completely destroyed, because these farmers are dumping on you, and your size of kind of the pie is going down because more issues are more tokens are being issued rapidly here. So those are like the two major things I consider. The third thing is kind of like, does this token capture value? And if it doesn't capture value right now, is there a good reason for it not to? Because I think a lot of people get caught up in expecting tokens to capture value from day one, or like very early on in a project's life cycle. And I think that's the wrong way to look at things, because protocol revenue should be reinvested into growing the project in its early stages. It shouldn't be paying out to, some random passive holders who just stake the token and are demanding like a yield on their tokens. I actually think that is incredibly damaging to a project long term, because if you look at it, some of the most successful projects are the ones that collect like protocol revenue and then distribute it back out and kind of like grow the project. I mean, look at Yearn, for example. They actually started off by having it so that you could stake YFI tokens, and the yield would the yield would come from protocol revenue, but that didn't do anything for the project. That just paid out to these kind of passive token holders who weren't really doing anything for the project. Now the way it is there's a buyback and a buyback program where they're basically buying back YFI tokens with the protocol revenue and paying this out to contributors. And Yearn just keeps growing. It's growing really, really fast. They've been able to set up programs to incentivize liquidity, like their partner program and stuff like that. So I just think that there's so many ways to design tokens, both in the correct way and the incorrect way. And we've seen these experiments play out over the last few years. We started off with things like utility tokens, where you actually had to hold the token to use the app. And that was obviously, in hindsight, a very big non-starter from the very beginning. No one wants to have to go and acquire some kind of token just to be able to interact with an app that they want to. Could you imagine if to trade on Uniswap, you had to own Uni tokens in your wallet and you had to own a minimum amount of Uni tokens? That wouldn't work. I think it works for things like communities, like gated communities. Say you have to hold 100 tokens to get into this community. That works, but I don't think it works if you're trying to get people to use your product, because no one is going to do that. I mean, you're basically charging people a variable kind of amount because the tokens vary in value, and you're making them hold this token that varies in value just to use your product. Too much friction there. So utility tokens failed. Then we had like this thing where people were just like, oh, we're a staking token. You can stake and kind of like earn fees. And it's like, okay, cool. And then now we're at this point where it's like we have a bunch of different mechanisms built into these tokens. And I actually think one of the best designs is the Aave token right now, because what Aave does is that you can stake your Aave tokens for a portion of protocol revenue. But from my understanding, a portion of the protocol revenue also goes towards an ecosystem reserve that is used to basically build out the protocol and reinvest in itself. But on top of this, Aave stakers aren't just free riding. They're not just getting this money for nothing. The people that are staking their Aave tokens are actually providing a backstop to the system. So if something was to happen, if there was an exploit or whatever that happened in the Aave protocol, the first line of defense is basically selling off Aave tokens from the stakers to cover the shortfall in the protocol. So this is, I guess, like similar to Maker's kind of mechanism where they print MKR tokens to make up for the shortfall. Whereas instead of printing tokens, Aave just sells off tokens of stakers and kind of socializes the losses with the stakers, because the logic flows that the stakers are governing the system as well. And if they make a bad governance decision that leads to a kind of like exploit, or if they make a bad decision, or if they're not monitoring the protocol as they should, then they should be the ones to take the hit first. And I agree with that. So there are a lot of different designs out there. I think there's going to be plenty more going into the future, but we're going to see how they play out. But yeah, more on this in the newsletter today if you wanted to check it out, but I'll leave it at that for now. So Tim Beiko provided I guess like a thread like he always does on the latest Ethereum All Core Devs call. I think the most interesting part of the thread to me was that the dates for the testnets for EIP 1559 or the London upgrade, which includes EIP 1559, were moved back a little bit. As I've mentioned on the refill before, I expected a 1 to 2 week delay on London due to a bug that was found in 1559 that was a consensus bug, so that needed to be fixed. These are the new testnet dates. The Ropsten fork on June 24th, Gurley on June 30th, and Rinkeby on July 7th. So I think from testnet to mainnet, they want to wait at least 3 weeks. So I think the best we can hope for right now is a July 28 mainnet date, but that hasn't been chosen yet. That'll be chosen after the testnets kind of go live. But July 28th, or it could push into August if the developers don't feel comfortable enough. The core devs don't feel comfortable enough kind of rushing it out. Not rushing it out, but like launching on July 28th. Yeah. So that's the latest on London on 1559. It's not too far away still. I mean, as I said, this isn't a big delay. This is basically, if it goes into August, it'll be 3 weeks. Who cares? We've waited over 2 years for this. I can wait another 3 weeks. And especially if it means that we're launching this, properly and we're not rushing it to mainnet or anything like that. So yeah, there's the latest update on London. So StarkWare announced today that they have launched their alpha version of their StarkNet kind of product here. So StarkNet Planets, they're calling it. This alpha is on the Ropsten testnet. So what StarkNet Planets alpha offers is it's the first step to their mainnet release for kind of our StarkNet. It's a permissionless Turing complete ZK rollup. It is not EVM compatible. It uses its own language and a virtual machine, I believe. The language is called Cairo, and it uses its own virtual machine to process that. But developers can still implement their business logic of choice in a smart contract and deploy it permissionlessly on StarkNet. The state transitions of StarkNet are proven off-chain and then verified on-chain. Much like Ethereum, users can interact directly with these smart contracts here. So I'm actually glad that StarkWare is taking a different approach with this, where they're not going for like the EVM compatible route. They're actually going for, using a new language that they believe to be an improvement over Solidity called Cairo, and they seem to be using their own kind of like virtual machine here as well, which I think is fine because we already have enough EVM compatible stuff, I believe. We have Polygon, we have Arbitrum, we have Optimism, we have ZK Sync as well. So StarkWare taking a bit of a different kind of approach here, I think is very, very good for innovation, very good for seeing what works, what doesn't work, and things like that. So really excited to see this. You can go read this blog post. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. It has a bunch more information in there. So Mark Cuban posted a blog post to his blog today called The Brilliance of Yield Farming, Liquidity Providing, and Valuing Crypto Projects. In this blog post, he essentially goes through kind of like what he believes the draw of DeFi is, why it's such a game changer, why it's a game changer for businesses, and why it's just like a million times better than, the existing businesses in meat space, essentially. I highly recommend going and giving this blog post a read. It's really great to get his perspective on this. I've spoken about Mark Cuban a lot before on the Refuel, where I said basically that I was very impressed by his knowledge of DeFi and Ethereum and the fact that he's paying such close attention. And for someone who basically is a billionaire who's got a lot more stuff going on in his life than Ethereum and DeFi, I think particularly DeFi and NFTs have caught his attention so much that he seems to be focusing a lot of his time on it, which is really awesome to see. And I've said before how I think that someone like Mark, who has a completely different audience that he reaches, as opposed to someone like me or Bankless or whatever, and it's really great to see him keep pressing on with DeFi here. So go read this. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. So this is a chart that I'd actually been monitoring for quite a while. I'd actually saw this back in January, and I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. So every few weeks I would check it, and I would see it tick up, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is really cool. And then it kept ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. And then eventually it got to a point where the percentage of the ETH supply in smart contracts is actually now at the same level it was during the DAO. Now, why is this significant? Well, this is 23% of all ETH in smart contracts. And the DAO, back in June 2016, was able to get in so much ETH in it because it was the only thing you could do with your ETH back then. And the DAO was a huge deal for everyone that was around back then, or even like everyone who's heard about it. You'll know all about the DAO. So I won't talk about the DAO here. But you can see here that during 2017, 2018, and 2019, until really DeFi summer kind of took off, ETH in smart contracts remained kind of flat or like ranging or kind of range bound after the DAO fork here. And it's also good to keep in mind that 23% of all ETH in smart contracts in June 2016 was less than it is now because the supply of ETH was less. The supply of ETH on June 2016 was 71 million. 23% of that, I believe, is 17 million-ish, maybe. I think so. Maybe a bit more than that, maybe 18 or 19 million. But anyway, and today, there's 115 million ETH, so 23% of that is about 27 or 28 million ETH. So it is even more ETH on an absolute basis, not just on kind of like this percentage basis here. And that means that at current prices, there's $63 billion worth of ETH in smart contracts, whereas in June of 2016, there was only $230 million worth of ETH, because June of 2016, the price of ETH was $15, and today it's about $2,500. So this is just absolutely incredible. As I said, I've been watching this for a while. I've just been blown away by this. And you may be wondering, okay, well, what does this mean? Like, what smart contracts is ETH in? Well, this counts the deposit contract. So the contract that you have to send your ETH to get into ETH2, that's 5.3 or 5.4 million ETH right now. This counts DeFi, of course, which is at 9 million ETH, I think, something like that. This counts supply in bridge contracts. So when you send your ETH to a bridge to go to another chain like Polygon or BSC, or you want to go to a layer 2 system like Loopring or something, this counts that. I think there's like all up maybe 2.5, 3 million or something like that in those contracts. Then it also counts multi-sig. So the Gnosis multi-sig is a smart contract wallet. Same with something like Argent, smart contract wallets. It counts all these smart contract wallets as well. And that quickly adds up to what we're seeing today. So you can see that it keeps going up. It doesn't seem to want to go down. And this also speaks to another chart that I've shown on the Refuel before, about the amount of ETH in smart contracts versus the amount of ETH on centralized exchanges. This just shows that the Ethereum economy, the Ethereum on-chain economy and system is growing at such a rapid pace, and it's actually being used, fundamentally, not just used kind of like what it was back in the day just for the DAO. The ETH is in many different places right now. So I'm going to keep monitoring this chart. I'm going to go over this in the next data pump, for those in next month's data pump, because I think it's really interesting, and there's a bit more I can talk to here. But that basically explains, where all the ETH is, and it's just incredible that $63 billion worth of ETH is sitting in smart contracts rather than sitting on exchanges. So Alchemix finally launched their alETH product. So for those who don't know, this product allows you to basically leverage your ETH and borrow alETH. And I think right now there's going to be, I'm not sure if it's live right now, but it's going to be live soon, where you can put your alETH into an AMM LP farm and farm ALCX tokens, as well as whatever other rewards are put on there. So basically to get into this kind of like this product, you basically deposit ETH, and for every 4 ETH you deposit, you can borrow 1 alETH. There's a debt ceiling of 2,000 alETH right now. That got hit pretty much instantly. I don't think it's been raised yet. So definitely, if you're waiting for this product, you have to wait until that kind of limit's raised there. But this is really cool, because this, again, is a self-paying loan. For those of you who know Alchemix, you'll know about the self-paying loan of the DAI product that they have, where you can basically put DAI in, and you'll get like ALUSD, and then that will pay it as a loan, and then that'll pay itself off, and you're able to kind of do whatever you want with the ALUSD, and you can't be liquidated. Same kind of thing here, where you deposit ETH, you can borrow 1 alETH for every 4 ETH and do whatever you want with that alETH, and while this kind of like pays itself off. So obviously not much to do with it right now since it's a new product, but you'll soon be able to do a lot more with it. So this is really exciting. It's just another way to stack ETH, another way to kind of get a yield on your ETH here. So Pet3r Pan posted a really awesome diagram of the Index Coop community, or the Index Coop team here. Now, I've spoken about the Index Coop a lot before on the Refuel, and I think this really is the best community in DeFi right now. You can see that it's very structured. It has been set up with different working groups that I've kind of spoken about before. Down the bottom, I think my camera's cutting off on the left side here, but down the bottom it says DeFi partners, institutional investors, OTC desks, and then exchanges and custodians, influencers, and retail investors. And then you can see up the stack where this kind of all kind of leads to here, and kind of like what feeds into it. And then at the top, you can kind of like see it's the Index Coop leadership at the top, and then it feeds into like the organization, and then all the different kind of working groups, meta governance, treasury, analytics, and then where SET sits in this, and where the methodologists sit, and things like that. So I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check it out for yourself. But I do think that I still think that the Index Coop is the best community in DeFi. They've got the best structure here, and I absolutely love what they're doing. So Anton from Yearn has teased a Yearn v1.2.0 UI facelift. So this is awesome. I mean, I still think that the Yearn interface can do with a lot of improvements. So I'm glad to see that they're actually working on this. So you can see here, like in the images that I'm showing you, basically what it looks like. This is very different to what it currently looks like on the live site. And I think over time, this is just going to get better and better. That's my one gripe with Yearn, is that the interface or the UI that they have right now is kind of meh. It's not really, very user friendly. It's definitely not something that, my grandma's going to use or anything like that. And neither is this, to be fair. But I think as time goes on, it's just going to improve over time. And I think that for DeFi natives, a lot of this stuff doesn't matter too much. But if we want to get more and more users into this ecosystem, user interfaces and user experience is definitely going to matter big time here. So InstaDapp has raised $10 million in fresh funding here. The round was led by Standard Crypto, a crypto fund, and other investors include DeFi Alliance, Long Hash Ventures, and Yearn founder Andre Cronje here. So this comes on the heels of their $2.4 million seed round that was done last year, I believe, where investors were Coinbase Ventures, Naval, and Pet3r. Now, for those of you who don't know InstaDapp, it's basically a middleware protocol that sits between different DeFi protocols and the user, where the user can use InstaDapp to basically do various functions within DeFi, not just on Ethereum, but I believe they support Polygon as well. So that's really, really cool. And it's really cool to see them get more funding here. They're going to have a token coming out soon. They haven't been shy about that. They're gearing up to launch it. And I'm sure there's going to be an airdrop to InstaDapp users. I'm not sure if you could use InstaDapp now and get the airdrop. Maybe they're going to clue into that and think that people are going to try and game the system. But if you have used InstaDapp in the past, I would personally expect an airdrop from this. But it's still good to see that they got $10 million of funding, especially even in a down market, right? Like, it's still good to see teams getting funded and having like certainty that even if the market stays like this for a while, they're still going to have money to kind of build out their products, because the best products are built in bear markets at the end of the day. So Alpha Finance launched their Alpha Launchpad Incubator program over the weekend. So this Launchpad program will basically multiply the value accrual to Alpha stakers, grow the Alpha universe, create key building blocks in DeFi, and grow talent and dev mindshare across the ecosystem. So this is really, really cool, because there's been a bunch of these kind of like Launchpad initiatives I guess launched lately, you could say. SushiSwap has one with their Miso kind of thing, which is, I guess, a Launchpad / kind of token issuance platform. There's a bunch of others out there. I believe Yearn has a program around this. I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of projects that have this. And the goal really is to capture the talent, because there's so many projects out there that want to create like a universe for themselves, but talent is scarce. So how do you create a talent? Well, how do you capture talent? Well, you do these programs where you kind of create a launchpad and you give these kind of new DeFi founders that want to launch their products access to your existing kind of knowledge and experience and reach and everything. And we saw this play out in a similar way with the Yearn ecosystem, where they started not acquiring, but essentially partnering up with a bunch of different DeFi protocols out there, and basically bringing them under the Yearn umbrella. So obviously SushiSwap is one. There's Pickle Finance. There's a bunch of others out there, and I think Cover Protocol and things like that. And this worked like a two-pronged approach. Basically got these projects under the Yearn umbrella and added value to the Yearn ecosystem, but also killed off competition. I think that was another goal there. They didn't say that, but I definitely think that was a way to kind of kill off competition. So still really cool to see this from Alpha Finance. One of the best teams in DeFi still. Definitely go check out the whole thread and the blog post for more information on what the Alpha Launchpad is here. And I think I'm going to move on to the last thing I wanted to talk about today, which was this absolutely brilliant thread from Bobby Ong from CoinGecko. So he put together this thread that basically goes through how to stay safe in crypto. And it's a kind of a long thread here. There's how many tweets in this thread? There's about, I think, 17 tweets in this thread going through the best practices with links to different things and how to keep yourself safe, how to keep yourself from getting your crypto stolen, links to different things about like the best hardware wallets to use and stuff like that. I just thought this was very important to bring up, because this was something that was asked during the AMA. If you want to watch the recap of the AMA, it's up on YouTube, by the way. But someone kind of like asked the question, it's like, how do you stay safe? Like, what's the best way to interact with kind of like crypto? Do you just do it with like a naked MetaMask, or do you use a hardware wallet? My advice, really, the simplest advice I can give is always use a hardware wallet. Don't keep more than maybe some kind of like a little bit of spending funds on a naked MetaMask. Because what ends up happening is that MetaMask is very easy to kind of like exploit, because if someone gets a virus on your PC or some malware, they can basically backdoor or man in the middle, and they can kind of steal your funds on MetaMask, or they can make you send transactions to people that you didn't want to send transactions to, which means that they could essentially go in the middle of your transaction and trick you into sending tokens to them. So on the surface level, I mean, the bare minimum I would do was do all my transactions through a hardware wallet. But you can also be man-in-the-middle attacked via that as well, as I explained on the AMA, where you could be signing something on those hardware wallets that you didn't mean to sign because someone sent the transaction to it by doing a man-in-the-middle attack there. So this thread goes through all of that. It's got links to different kind of hardware wallets and stuff like that, and how to do things like remove contract approvals, like smart contract approvals, and make sure that you're securing your mobile phone and not having two-factor authentication powered by your mobile number. It should be powered by a separate app. So yeah, I'll link this thread in the YouTube description. You can go check this out. It's got so much good info in here. I mean, it's very, very popular. 10,000 likes, 3,700 retweets. So yeah, go check that out if you haven't yet. But that's it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.